And welcome back to another edition of the Best of Three podcast. It is a lovely Sunday evening. Tori,
Sir,
how you doing?
I'm good, Alvin. I'm liking your cut, brother. You got it nice and Mr. Clean over there.
Yeah, it really depends on which of the 3 days in the cycle you catch me. You caught me on day two, so it's looking okay. All of us with our hair struggles struggle in different ways, but so I'm 2 days strong. Day three, it's like. Yeah, if I were taller, I could pull it off, but like any more than that, it's a bad look. It's a bad look.
Alvin,
How
I'm
often how
tall.
often are you shaving?
I'm tall, and I can't pull it off either way. It's just I have so many hats.
Yes, yes. My
That's all I can
my
say.
boy Jerome, when I finally became openly bald, he was like, "You're gonna need to get some hats." And
Yeah,
I've seen my hat collection grow. Mostly, and not because of like the stages of where the hair is. I can usually get through a shave pretty quick, but it's more so the sun protection. Like I feel like I sweat like in an instant now. I walk outside and by the time I get the mailbox, like
yeah.
my head looks like I've been in the
Oh,
shower.
and the sun, especially this Atlanta sun, on a hot day, and we got some hot days last week, 80 plus, you will literally feel your scalp on
Yes.
fire. I
Yeah.
mean, make no mistake. I mean, so mine, I have to have a hat. It's not even a question. To answer your question about how many days, I'm at the week rate right now. If I want a steak, uh, you'll start seeing some residue of hair about day two, day three, but not enough. Day four, Sunday, obviously, I do my Sunday service, so I try to get cleaned up on a Sunday most of the time. But usually I can go about a week before it starts to look, haggard. You know what I mean? Uh,
Right. Yeah.
I think it's more about my patience and time than it is about anything else. It's not about, if I were, a TV personality or something like that, I'd probably only be on a 3-day schedule like yourself. But I got my hat covers a multitude of sins, so to speak. So that's where
I
I'm at.
think that's the kicker. It's like, do I have like am I going to be in the office? Am I going to be on
Right.
video on something
Right.
important? And that usually happens more frequently than it doesn't. But anyways, people don't listen to us to hear us talk about our
Yeah, about our hair
grooming
follicles,
habits.
no
But
doubt.
yeah, but it's important. It's
Yep.
important.
Yep.
So where are we right now? We are in the thick of the clay court season. Kind of
Much
sticking
too
with.
long clay court season, I
Yeah,
might.
it's a stretch, right? So we just finished up Madrid. We're recording on Sunday evening. Men's final, women's final are going completed. In case we forget to mention, Casper Ruud takes out Jack Draper. Tough three-set match. That was a good match. And Arena, the metronome Sabalenka takes out Coco Gauff in straight sets. Somehow straight sets. Yesterday.
Yep.
But and we'll kind of get into it, but I wanted to talk a little bit about Madrid in general, right?
Yep.
So kind of where we are right now in the season, we always kind of try to keep track of this, right? Like we
Yep.
went Monte Carlo for the men, and then Barcelona and Stuttgart happened at the same time for the men and women, also Munich for the men, and then now we're all in Madrid, and then going to Rome for everybody, and then going to Roland Garros, kind of on the
Yep.
trot here. So
Yep.
it's a lot of you're starting to see, I guess, a little bit of in swing fatigue happen, right? Like
Yeah.
some of the good players are losing a little bit early. Carlos didn't even play because of injury. We had some early losses on the men's side. But I kind of wanted to get your thoughts, like this tournament feels like a trap tournament, like, and it like I wanted to kind of get your thoughts on like what is the like ideal build up for a major event. Like this is one, two, three, four tournaments
Yeah.
like in
Before the
succession.
actual build-up of Rome. Yeah, before the
Right.
actual
Yeah. Yeah.
tune-up of Rome. Alvin, this is a tough one to me, and I'm going to side with the players on this one. The clay court season is just too long. Um, I have always, I'm going to say, not hated, but always disliked the tour and their long season. I feel like the tour is trying to sell every week with the same package, same top players, same playbook, right? At the end of the day, the players' pocketbooks are and careers are made off of the slams. And so let's face it, the 1000s, while they have a bigger purse and they're bigger and let's say more prestigious, aren't as protected as they should be. And the 500s, if they fall in the right week, actually have a little better of a turnout than the thousands. And if you play that second 1000 or the third 1000, you're liable to have pullouts, a spate of injuries, and the tournament poster may have 8 different players, of which of them may not be there.
Yeah.
So that's what you're running into. And I say shame on the tour for not recognizing this and making some changes. If in a perfect world, Alvin, there should be a 6 week build up. Now check me out here. 6 weeks. The first week goes out to the Futures and Challengers crew, Team Next Gen, the whole up and coming players, right? The other ones are not even called up. Y'all stay home, rest up, go spend time with fam, train, whatever you do, right? Week 5, we kind of start getting into a few more of the what we used to call the 250s, right? We starting to kind of ramp up into that level. Mind you, all of this needs to have some sort of quali/pre-quali emphasis for the upcoming slam. That's the only draw. And now without them giving up their actual wild cards, right? Week 4 and out, we should now start to get our first real, right? Our first real 500 ish. And that should be more of a okay, but it's a very small draw, and there should be 3 or 4 of them. And hey, they are in and out round of 16s. Boom. Everybody gets a little tennis. Let's kind of just let's get our playing in, and let's be done. This is a 4-day event. It's a sprint. It's not a marathon. It's not a week. And then by week 2, week 1, you start getting into a 500 the week before. And then you, of course, get the quali/your EXO tournament the week before. And now the Australian, let's say, starts. Same thing for the clay. Now, can that happen? Probably not, because the tour's making too
Probably
much
not.
money
Probably
off
not.
all the other tournaments. But here's my problem, Albert. Here's the problem. If you did 6 weeks times 4, okay? 6 weeks times 4, you had 24 weeks, right? And then you did in the off time, you made like I'm gonna take a cue from the NBA here. And I'm not saying they're the most successful model, but you started doing something like the WNBA. You fill in another league, another tour in that time frame. Let Next Gen be its own tour, and they play during that time frame. These guys are young; they can play, they can do their thing. But don't let Novak have to play the same schedule as my
Yeah.
main man Yao Fonseca, right? There are 2 different ends of their careers, right? So between G League, which is its own league, let Next Gen be G League like, and let the rest of maybe a doubles tour. Maybe I know that's a bad word right now with doubles, but
Yeah.
having the
Yeah.
same numbers. But let the rest of the I'm going to call it the EXO kind of a tour. You know how the used to have the Stella Artois at before Wimbledon and whatnot. It was like almost like an exhibition
No,
tournament
like
before
there's a Boodles event. Like it's
Boodles now, but it
the
used to be called
Boodles. Yeah.
Stella Artois right
Okay.
before
Yeah.
Wimby. It was a 4 person, semifinal and final. It was 2 or 3 days. Everybody got to see their top players play there at a grass court venue. And really, what it was, Alvin, was for them to get a little feel of the grass without playing a full on tournament. And so, what I'm getting at, Alvin, is I just feel like the tour, and I'm not saying you have to have just one clay court season. Have that be
Well,
another clay court season.
I think you touched on something that is the actual problem is that we have multiple things happening in the same tour,
Yeah,
right?
all at
You've
once.
got the big names like on the men's side you have the Sinners and the Djokovic's and the Alcarazes, and on the women's side you have the Igas and you have the Cocos and the Sabalenkas who are the draws. Those are the people
Yeah,
that the fans come out to see.
right.
This is why the
The
rights
household
holders
names.
rights holders pay all the money to
Yep,
broadcast. Like
yep,
these are the money
yep.
makers, right? But then you have the other people, and they don't have to play every week to make a good living, right? They can play 13, 15 weeks a year, and they're fine, right?
Yeah,
Yeah. But then the rest of the people, though, the rest of the tour, those are the ones that are playing to make money. They're playing to make a
100%.
living, and
Yep,
their needs are different. Yet they're all the players are kind of funneled into the same. They're on the same track. Somehow they're on the same
problem with
track.
it, Alvin, it doesn't work for the top. It doesn't work for the
Sure.
journeyman. So who's it working for? The tour, and which
Well,
is
I mean,
why it's a problem
barely.
for me.
Well, it's working for the tour because they get to play. They're playing defense, and this is like I don't want to go too far into it, but this is a lot of the conversation around like what the PTPA is talking about, right? Like why there are no other options for the players. Like they have all these really hard and fast rules for tournaments that they can play versus like other things that they can't do. Like if you're in an event, you can't go play an EXO if you lose early. Like it's like one of these. There are some very very weird, not weird, but they're very stringent rules around these things.
I would put
And
the early losers into another draw, and they would be forced to play because rankings and whatnot would have an effect. That's your week 5 and week 4 tournament. Those early losers would have to, and they are now the draw, whoever you are, would have to play those guys. And it's almost a penalty slash, you got to play extra because you didn't play so much. And let's face it, you didn't play so much, right? So you end up going into this kind of a recirculating consolation slash next week's main, but you're really consolation in the next 500 or 250 event. And I'm just saying something like that might have some real, it might lend itself to just bob and weave its way to getting the different players to play more tennis, which is ideal for the fans and the players. And it might just give you the name recognition that you might need for that next event. Otherwise, the same playbook, the same week. Come on, Alvin. At some point, 6 weeks, 7 weeks later, you heard it right here. I don't even know if Alcaraz is hurt. I'm glad he said he's hurt
right,
so that
yeah.
he pulled out because now he's got a chance to win the
Well,
French and not be dinged up.
when you see, I mean, then we look at it last year, right? He won the French. He didn't play any of these events, so like whatever. But like you started to see it. I think we might have talked about this a couple weeks ago, right after Barcelona. But like he wins Monte Carlo, he gets to the final of Barcelona, win or lose, whatever. He's still playing the same amount of matches at the end. It's like, okay, he's got two Masters 1000s before Roland Garros at that point. It's like, yeah, he can't play both of those. Like he can't play both of those. Like there's no reason, and not just him. Like it's the same thing with like Artifices played all of them. Holger Rune played all of them.
Yep.
Holger lost
They're
early.
there.
Archer
Thank you. Both lost
lost
early.
relatively early. It's almost like we were talking about peaking a little bit later, but like would the best way, like what is the best way to come into these events? Like how much warm up do you actually need? And I feel like, when you see the top players, like if you look at the US Open, and compare it to Roland Garros, right? Right before the U.S. Open, you have Cincinnati, and right before that, you have Montreal and Toronto, right? And generally, but right before that, you have Washington D.C., which is the 500. You don't really see a lot of players starting to show up. Like early would be D.C. Most of them show up in Canada. Like most of them show up and they're all in Canada, and then they're
Yep.
all in Cincinnati, and then it's go time. And that seems like the right amount of warm up. So if you use
Great.
the clay court example, it would be like basically nothing before Madrid matters, right? I mean, if you were playing well 6 weeks ago or 4 weeks ago in Monte Carlo, did that really help you in Paris in June? Eh,
It's too early.
too
And
early.
and and Monte Carlo's a great venue, so make that be the next ATP Tour final. You know what I mean? A Masters final event instead of Beijing. Of course, I know Beijing probably pays a lot of money and whatnot, but I'm just
And
saying.
time of year as well, yeah. But yeah,
I'm just saying that I just feel like the tour is risking its primary you what you call them, stakeholders or
yeah,
whatever.
probably sir, yeah, stakeholders, yeah,
You are risking your namesakes by making them play so many weeks and mandating them to play so many weeks, right?
right.
You're
It's
just
the
causing them
mandate.
to come up with some injuries, forfeit some money. Quite frankly, you're helping to lose revenue in the draws because you know that player's not going to stick around for too long. They're still looking at managing their schedule. So again, I don't want to get too deep in the weeds, but to your point, I think the schedule creates havoc. One of my favorite players, Alvin, I know this kid since he was 10 years old. John Isner was one of the best players to come out of the United States in the last so many years. John was king of the 250s and the 500s, right? I mean, I don't know how many times he won Atlanta. I don't know how many times he won the tournament there in Winston-Salem. I mean, the guy was just, and never could seem to get out of the first week of a Grand Slam. That's because he played all the other tournaments, right? And I feel like the tour has to look at it and say, yeah, but that's Isner. We're really, really trying to get the slams for the top. Well, you're not helping the top either, right? And I feel like they did guys like Isner a disservice because he's helping to fill the seats of those smaller events. He is that local Novak, right? At the end of the day, the problem with it is that he has to play it. Both he's mandated by the tour and he can play it and he's going to win. He's
He's
got
gonna
points coming
win.
off from last week, right? And
Yeah,
now you penalize him because he's played all 7 of your tune-ups, and now you wonder why he's going out in the 3rd or 4th round. The
I mean,
guy's gassed.
I'll push back on that and say like, okay, maybe there's a way to look at it. And John is extremely pragmatic, right? You hear him speak, and like he's very cerebral about like and very purpose driven about what he's doing. So I'd like to imagine that he looks at it like, there's two ways to make the All-Star game, right? You can get in on singles and doubles, or you can get in on home runs, right?
Right.
And he's not going to challenge, very much over the course of a 2 week event. But like, put him at a 4 or 5 day 250, he can bang right through that thing. And so like that's a that's a business decision at the end of the day. Like,
And John may be a bad example, but John is my
yeah.
quintessential top 10 example of a guy that makes his money, to your point, the rest of the year. I would submit, though, and again, his long Hall of Fame, never to be broken match at Wembley, 3 days long, came from a place of I played all year. My serve's pretty good.
Always
And
ready.
I will not, because of that, have the gas and goods to go deep into a grand slam. And I just feel like at some point, I'm not leading the John Isner for, should have won Wemby one year, a bandwagon. I'm just saying the guy did it all correct. To your point, maybe that was his decision. But the tour is set up to where you have to play so much. It's almost Russian roulette. Do I play extra and win and do well and make money? Or do I save myself for the slams? And every single player is in that spot, Alvin. And I totally get your point. I'm not saying that there aren't decisions, and I'm not crying for me, Argentina, for my tour players. I do feel, though, at some point, if long term, it's causing a lot of players to have shorter careers. And in my opinion, that's a detriment to tennis. And I read an article about Jim Courier. I think I told you about it last episode. And he was talking about how they just played everything. They played everything. And Roger Federer, he quotes in the article, was one of the first people that managed the schedule to his favor. He didn't
And
play certain weeks. He took off certain weeks. And that's why he attributed Federer's career to be as long as it was. So that's just something I submit to you. This is from Jim Courier, and I'm
yeah,
not talking
yeah.
about, John Isner.
Speaking of Roger Federer, I think this is going to kind of take us to our next point. Like that segue there, that was a pretty good one, I
Yeah.
think. We were texting about this earlier, and I want to talk about Novak a little bit, right? And I texted this to you. I was like, when we're talking about Madrid, we need to make sure we talk about Novak, but I didn't tell you what I was thinking about Novak. And so,
Lay it on me, brother.
here it goes, right? And so my take right now is that we don't the end for the greats comes a lot faster than we think. And I had a hunch, and I started doing a little bit of digging. And when you start to look at like the end of Rafa's career, right? So Rafa just retired end of last year, right? 2024. In
Officially.
2020, officially, right? Yeah, officially. 2022, right? Rafa's 36 years old. He opens up the year with that. He had that foot injury end of 2021, comes back in 2022. He's like, all right, I'm gonna give it a try, right? Wins the warm up for Australian Open, wins Australian Open, wins Acapulco right after, finals Indian Wells, right? Had a rough clay, but won Roland Garros, semifinals of Wimbledon, and then pulls out against would have played Kyrgios. Is that right?
Play
Like beats
curious.
Taylor,
Yep.
and then would have
Yep.
played Kyrgios,
Taylor
right?
with the underhand serve, so to speak. Yep.
Exactly. And
Yep.
then I think he loses to Francis at the U.S. Open that year, or around the 16, something like that.
Sure.
Um,
Clearly
but
still
then
dinged up.
yeah, but then yeah. So case being, he shuts it down in 2023. He didn't play anything in 2023 besides the Australian Open, right? And then boom, 2024, he announces his retirement. He's already done, right? He he won 2 Grand Slams the last year of his full time playing, like, and was getting the job done, and then it hit him, right? Same thing. You think about Fed. Fed, this is a little bit while ago, and you have to consider that like he retired in 2021. He only played one tournament in 2020. Obviously, it was because of the
COVID.
COVID-19, but he semifinaled Australia that year,
Yeah.
right? The year before, I think he won Dubai, he finaled in Wells, he won Miami, semifinals in Garros, he He won Hala, final Wimbledon. He was playing good tennis in
Sure.
2019 and
Sure.
then led up to 2020 and then
Man.
retired in 2021. Right. So, okay. So now we take a look at Novak, right? 2023 was an amazing year. He wins Roland Garros. I mean, he wins Australian Open, Roland Garros. He lost to Carlos in Wimbledon, wins the US Open, right? Won Paris Masters. He won Cincy Masters. He won Tour. He was lights out, right? Last year, Australian Open, limps into the Australian Open. Like, this is the center, I think, in the semifinals, but like was pretty much cooked. Uh, Goes into French Open, gets hurt, has to pull out in the quarterfinals, right?
Yep.
Comes back somehow, makes the final at Wimbledon. Fantastic, wins the Olympics. So now we're looking at a very interesting situation with Novak, right? Now I'm just laying out the
Sure.
what happened to his, you know, his cohort up to the time where they called it quits.
Father Time is undefeated, Alvin.
It is, and I
Yeah.
think we're watching it, and I think
Yeah.
he's watching it. I think he knows it that
I think
this
he's
could.
living it.
Oh yeah,
I think he's living it, brother.
he's not an unaware man.
Now, I will say this. I will say this. I am not willing to say Novak is done until Novak says he's done because I would never rule the brother out. I do think he peaked too early in Miami. He put the absolute beat down on my main man, Dimitrov, and in my opinion, actually peaked a little early in that tournament, which is something any player can do. You don't know when you're going to play phenomenal. He actually played phenomenal that match. My only problem is I haven't seen him play as well since,
Or
and that
before, really. I mean, well,
well
he played
before
well in Australia. He played well
played
in
well in
Australia.
Australia. I'm just saying when I
Beat
say played
Carlos and
well, he played Novak esque that match. Efficient, surgical. I think he missed 6 total serves. Alvin, have you ever? You and I might miss 6 serves if we're trying to get 20 in a row in the out wide corner. I mean, 6. He missed 6 serves, Alvin, in a 2 out of 3
yeah.
match and a semi of a ATP 1000. Think about what I'm saying. That's surgical. That's precise. Now, I'm only saying he started to look like the old Novak for a small, brief period of time. I had almost, because of Australia, ruled him out. And he came back and he looked as sharp as he ever did. And I was like, man, Novak is looking sharp. I think on this podcast, I might have even said, hey, watch out for Novak. He's still a threat. Novak has not looked that good since that match. Now he's dinged up. He's got some injuries again. He's 37 years old. I get it. We did it. We did an episode on age
Yeah. Yeah.
on this podcast. I am not going to rule Novak Djokovic out until he rules himself out.
That's fair. That's fair.
However, I have not seen that level of tennis from him since. And there is blood in the water, both from this tournament in Madrid as well as others. And I just don't know, Alvin. I just don't know. To your point, I'll give you another one in there, Alvin, as I finish my point. To your point, the drop off was very quick and
Instantly.
unknown.
Yeah.
Pete Sampras, Alvin, also had a quick resurgence in '02 when he won his last slam and snuck out the back door before Father Time robbed him of a very unsightly career end. And he was able to go out on top in '02 when he won the US Open. But toward the end, not 1990, in 2002, he would have, in my opinion, suffered a very similar low end uh, drop off, right?
Yeah.
Falling off the cliff, which is really what you're describing. You're saying they played well until they didn't. And then it dropped off fairly quickly.
And
And I think that same thing happened to Pete Sampras in '02. He wouldn't have done well in '03. He barely
right.
won in '02, to be
Yeah,
honest.
he was not playing well all of 2002. I mean, he probably could have retired in 2001 if he wanted to. But
100%.
I think that
And
the
May should
kicker
have.
is, yeah, well, hell, he got the slam. We'll give it to him. I
Yeah.
think the kicker is it's not the ability to get to the same heights, right? These guys can all hit their peak, like, and we know this is, aging athletes. Like, I can look good tomorrow. I can look as good as I ever did tomorrow, but I can't do it again on Tuesday and then again on Thursday. Like, that's what it is. It's the ability to, and that's what tennis and specifically Grand Slams require of you, right? To do it and then come back and do it again for 2 weeks. And yeah, that's the tough part, right? But that's
We're
also
seeing
the
it with LeBron, with the Lakers. We're seeing it with other
right.
players in other
Yeah,
sports. We're seeing it with with some of the top players in golf. I mean, the top guys just don't have it day in day out, and how could they? You know what I'm saying? So I think that's my point, Alvin, and I think that you're hitting on something. I think what I'm taking from what you're saying is that he may have already hit that point.
Do you think he right now, because he pulled out of Rome, right? He's not going to play Rome. Do you think he's got a tournament scheduled that's the last one? Because in my head, I think he does. I think he does. I'll say it out loud. I
When
think
you
I
say it, when you say he has a plan, like as if that's his last.
like he knows when he's done, and he knows what the tournament's going to be, and I think it's sooner than anyone thinks it is.
See, I disagree with that. Here's why I push back. He is so confident in himself and his work ethic that he knows on any given day, I'm better than any of you on your bad day. Even at my age, even dinged up, you're going to have to play phenomenal to beat me. And if you're phenomenal, you're going to have to play good to beat me. I think he still thinks that there's a chance that a Cerundolo, that a Ruud will take out one of his competition and give him a easier route to the semi/final. That's what I think he's playing for,
Yeah, but the
and
kicker
that's the
that
only thing he's playing for, in my opinion.
but for him to be in a position to take advantage of that, though, he needs to be ranked high enough, which means he needs to do well in the other events. He's putting himself in a position, not
Yeah,
putting himself in a position. He's not doing it by choice, right? But like by the results that he's putting up so far in the tournaments he's not playing, that ranking is going to continue to slip, and
sure.
rankings
Points
make
defended
seedings.
gone.
Yeah, rankings make
Sure.
seedings, and seedings make draws, and that's like now we're talking about, does he end up with a like a Carlos or a Sinner in the
Draw.
third round, and you can't, like, what are you gonna do about it? Can't do anything about that. Yeah, now do you need to go like, you have to go through Sinner and then go through like Rude and then play Zverev in the, like, or like something like that. Like, it's like now it's making the whole I just want to win slams a lot more difficult.
At that point in time, I think if he takes some of those L's at that point, to your point, I feel like, and yeah, we know Novak. Novak's going to work the system. He's going to pull a wild card. He's going to pull out. He's going to do whatever he needs to do to try to compete and be relevant. I would say to you, this French would be one of the first times. Sorry, second time. I think it happened in Australia. This would be one of the second times it's happened to him where he's fully faced with mortality, and now tennis mortality, and that I am at the waning days, not months, not years, waning days of my career. And I'll be honest, Alvin, I saw Serena go through it just a few years ago. I saw Rafa go through it a few years ago. I saw Roger go through it a few years ago. It's a very sad time, you know what I mean? But
Nothing
it
sadder than seeing Roger Federer walk off center court Wimbledon taking a bagel from friggin' Hubie Hurkacz as his last professional tennis match. That image is seared into my brain, and he deserved better than that.
and
So
he
yeah,
should have. And to my point, talking talking about my main man talking about my main man, Pete, I thought Pete was so smart by ending it on a high note. I think Pete kind of knew, yeah, it might be done. You know what I mean? And at that point, did this thing. But you can't tell one of the greats that he is no longer great. I remember watching a TNT episode one night, and Kenny the Jet Smith said, "You can't tell me that I can't make that jumper. I've made too many of them over my career. So what you need a point guard that's smart enough to not give me the ball when I'm in a slump." And
right.
I thought it was a great comment. He says, "Because if you give me the ball,
I want to shoot.
I'm shooting the ball. I know I'll make that shot. I don't care if I'm 0 for 8. I'll make the next one." And his
So
point was, the point guard has to be smart enough to know that I'm going to take the shot. So
well,
don't give it to him because he'll take the shot.
unfortunately, Novak is the point guard. He's the shooter. He's also
And
he's the center and the
and the
coach.
center and the coach,
He
right?
also owns the team. Okay, so
So
here's my. Okay, so this is what I think, because your point about Pete Sampras is very like in tune with where I'm going here. I think Novak ain't out here to be like like Grigor and like Monfils and like Stan, right? He's not gonna just like play the hits, getting in on wild cards or like hanging on, trying to make top 20 or whatever like that. He's here for the
He's here for
slams and that's
slams.
it. He's
Right.
got plenty of things to do in his life outside of
Sure.
playing tennis. So like, you know, I feel like this is gonna be a little wild, but I'm dangerous. I don't think he's gonna play Roland Garros. I think he's actually
You
gonna pull
gotta
out.
be kidding. You out of your mind.
Wait, oh, it gets better. It gets
Okay,
better.
talk to me.
I think it's Wimby and out.
Oh, you think no
I think
French
it
and Wimby out?
no, I think no French. I think he plays Wimbledon and he retires. Like I just don't feel like he actually cares that much. And of the tournaments that mean the most to him, I think it's Wimbledon. And because he can he got to the final of Wimbledon on one leg last year, right? It's not as taxing as the rest of them. He hasn't he can't seem to get himself through a Grand Slam right now, right? He pulled out against Zverev in the semifinals of Australia, right? Um,
But
last
but he but
year,
he pulls out because he can. You know what I mean? And let's face it, Alvin, that match he was hurt. I mean, I think we all understand he was hurt,
yeah,
right?
but
He
that's
would
gonna
have pulled out
happen.
5 years ago
That's what's
if
gonna
he
happen
was
if
that
you're
hurt.
in your sixth match in 12 days. Like that's
And
on
you're
hard
37,
court in the summer, right? Yeah,
right?
exactly. But hey, they're all 3 out of 5 sets, and they're all 2 weeks long. So,
Yeah.
but Wimbledon's the one that hurts the least, and he can old man his way like post up game against these kids on grass. Like he just kind of push them around a little bit. Yeah,
Oh,
exactly. We're gonna move it. Just one here.
lean in.
Yeah, he got there. He got to the finals on one leg last year, and Carlos had to play like lights out to just beat him in straight. So like I said, it's a
I
wild
like where you're
assertion. I
going with it
understand.
because you're throwing it out there. I think that is next year's Australian. I'm not too far off from where you are. I just think it's next year's Australian. He's one of the greats. I think he's going to want that one of the greats farewell tour a little bit. Um, Australia was his first. I think he'll want Australia to be his last. I agree with you. I don't think he'll play many no Frenches after this, but he's got to give this one a shot. That's why he's trying to kind of double down and pull out so he can be ready for the French. Wemby, to your point, I agree. He's won the U.S. Open recently, Alvin, and so my mind, I think he's still thinking, yeah. But if you two just so happen to run into somebody, he's actually quietly hoping that Jakob Mensik, Ben Shelton, right, somebody will come through and bring the L like he needs, right? They will take care of that one round he needs to move through and get the matchup he wants. If he plays DeMonar, Allen, if he plays Tommy Paul, I mean, let's face it, he would prefer that matchup to a long, grueling, a center. And I'm not going to say Jakob Mensik an easy round. I'm saying though there are better rounds for him depending on the matchup. And I feel like as a result of his want to prove himself in number 25, much like Serena did her last couple of years, right? She kept going for number 20. Was it 24? She kept going for that,
24, yeah.
kept trying to go for that one. I just feel like he will go through the rest of this year. And I think that he will start to get the picture that I'm a little bit dinged up. I'm a little bit a step slow, and I'm a little bit not ready to play these things year in, year out. And I really want to spend more time with my family. And I don't have it. I agree with you on the point about he doesn't have a chance to win. He's not going to hang around. But I think knowing how hard he works and how much he feels his body's a machine, he will not admit that soon.
Right, but that's the difference between him and Serena, though, because Serena was getting to finals of Grand Slams. Like right now, we're in the midst of Novak not being able to get through tournaments. So that's and losing in the first round of these like other offhand events. Like that's the difference, and I think that's also like we talk about Serena a lot, and then I think we talk about her as much as we should. But like when she was going for that record-breaking slam, she did get to the finals. Lost to Halep, who played the best match of her life,
Amazing that
right?
match
Well,
for
gets to
sure.
the finals
Lost
of
to
the
Naomi.
U.S. Lost to Naomi at the
Yeah,
U.S. Open. Lost to
who
Bianca
played
Andreescu,
phenomenal
who
that
played
match.
amazing as well. Yeah,
Sure.
these women all like played the matches of their lives, but it was in the final. She wasn't there. She was still there. Like okay, we'll see with Novak. I don't want to spend too much time on him. I just want to make
Yeah,
sure
but it's
we
a
talk a
good
little bit
point though,
about the.
and I like how bold you're coming out. I like it.
It's
I just don't think it's as soon. I don't disagree. Maybe we disagree on the timetable, but I don't disagree in general.
yeah, July's aggressive. July's aggressive. I know that, but I feel like if he were to win it. It might change depending on if he wins it or not.
That's 2
If he
years from
wins
now.
it, I definitely think he's out. If he wins Wimbledon, I feel like he wants to win, go out on top, and call it good.
For sure. 25 and out, for sure.
Yeah, let's move into. I want to talk a little bit about the maybe a little bit about the final or the men's half of Madrid. It I think this is a really, before talking about the final, I think this is really indicative of like where we're going to be in men's tennis over the next few years. Like you get a little bit of like, okay, Carlos isn't here, Yannick isn't here, the other top seeds lose early, and you get these random, they feel like random finals, but like someone's got to play these finals, and we don't have these
We've only
guys
had
who are.
4 of them, Alvin. Indian Wells was rando to me. You know what I mean? But Deception and Novak, Jakob Mensik was a rando. You know what I mean? And in Miami, I know
Yep.
what you're saying. First of all, hats off to Casper Ruud, and hats off to, hey, you heard it right here. Hats off to Jack Draper, who
I, I
has
got I got I
never a
got I
clay
got to
court
lay out.
specialist.
I got to lay out for Draper in a minute. Yeah, but yeah,
Right.
Casper,
I mean,
like
I gotta
Casper
say
getting
it.
right
Hats off.
at the right time.
For sure, and I thought he kind of had a little bit of a shot of a just kind of had a rando week at in Indian Wells. Knew he played some good tennis. Don't get me wrong, but hats off to the kid for proving himself on clay. We talked about Ben Shelton a few weeks back about how he's starting to push himself on clay and make himself be a force to be reckoned with on the clay. Jack Draper just beat a couple of good clay quarters along the way to get to the strong final.
He
So hats
he
off to him
did.
and not cubby holding himself as just a hardcore player. Casper Ruud has won 12 of his 13 titles on clay. If
Yeah, that's what he
anything,
does.
I was happy to see Casper Ruud return to his good form.
We were worried about him a little bit. We did
Very
talk
worried.
about him as he was on notice, and I
Yeah.
think I appreciate Casper. Obviously he listens to the podcast, and he's like, yeah, you're right, I am on notice, and got himself off
He
the
sent me a text last week. I had
yeah,
to talk with him.
good guy, great guy. But yeah, it was good to see like that final was very interesting. It's like the one player, Jack Draper, obviously has the higher ceiling. You can see the stuff, but Casper just kind of weathered that storm. Like, I mean, the way that he fought Jack off, Jack serving what 5-4
Right.
first set, like
I want to say he was
no
down
one's touching him.
4-1, was he not? Then he came back 5-4.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
he's serving Jack serving 5-4 up a break, trying to get that first set. He's getting through service games pretty easily, and then like one little hiccup, boom, break, Casper, hold, Casper, break, walked off that first set like gotcha, like
Threw the balls out of his pocket.
don't blink, I'm here. And I think it was just a matter of like yeah, one player's got maybe a higher ceiling. Obviously, younger has a little more in front of him, but Casper's a pro, especially on clay. You're not gonna shake him. And he just kind of weathered the storm, and then like he let Jack got a little tired towards the back end, but a lot of that has to do with like the way Casper played, and I thought it was a very interesting matchup that really came down to like could Casper create enough depth on the forehand cross court to keep Jack from really leaning in on it, and it was so fun to watch like them
Yep.
that little battle within the battle.
Well, I will add to that and take a brief trip to Coach's Corner. Any right-hander that's playing a lefty should watch Casper Ruud's match against Jack Draper because he not only attacked the backhand, found ways to go back behind him with the backhand, but he stung him enough times down the line to keep him honest to open up the backhand the next time. And I felt like the occasional dropper, the hook forehand on the righty, which is almost always a lefty pattern, the hook forehand out wide that had Jack slicing and moving the ball back to his forehand. He went one more back to the backhand, and Jack's got a decent backhand. Don't get me wrong, very
Jack's got a
solid.
fantastic
So,
backhand.
in reading one and watching one of the YouTube broadcasts, Jack's right-handed, of course.
He's
So
right-handed, yeah.
there, one more time, another Rafa situation where you realize these guys are lefties by choice. Still something I got to get my head around. But bottom line, the guy's backhand is all day. So, but not as big as the forehand. And unfortunately for him today on clay, that forehand bite is a little bit off. The serve bite's a little bit off because on clay. And Casper is a phenomenal returner. So I felt what he did today was he played textbook how you beat a lefty tennis. I don't know if he'd be able to do it on hard court, but he did it today on the clay. He
Right.
played up in the court. He got the balls wider, sometimes even shorter than normal, and pulled him out wide. He stung him when he needed to, and bottom line, he broke him when he needed to, which is no small feat. And I say hats off to Casper Ruud for adding his first 1,000 Master Series
Yeah,
title.
absolutely. Absolutely. And I think it's almost like I'll take the other side of that one because, I am, you know this, maybe the listeners do know this as well, but like I am left-handed and I have taught lefties and it's one of my favorite things to do is teach other
Right,
left-handed players because there are some things that lefties are allowed to get away with
right,
just because of the matchup between what happens on the
right.
ad axis of the court, right?
Sure.
And kind of maybe big general terms is like you can only do so much with a really good backhand, right? Having a really good backhand doesn't you can it can be a really really good shield. It's very hard to make a backhand a weapon just because of physics, right? You can't really hook a backhand and open up the
Right,
court.
right.
So I'll
Can't,
say
can't
for
go buggy left
exactly,
backhand. Can't
exactly,
go open stance rip buggy. Serena was the
exactly.
closest thing to it
Yeah, yeah. So
with
like
her
with the
open
lefties,
stance
like
sling.
with the lefties, and I had one girl that I used to teach that we would do this drill over and over and over. It's like the lefty when you get into that ad court rally where you want to be cross court lefty hook to a traditionally a righty's backhand,
Yep.
right? Eventually, you're going to get a ball in the middle of the court, right? That's ideal, right? Are you aware enough and fast enough to come into the middle of that court, take that backhand, lean on it, and rip it cross court? And then camp out in the middle of the court, slightly over to the deuce court, and then go maybe inside out, inside in, work that pattern from there, right? So that's the
Yep.
that's the bread and butter for a
Bread and butter.
lefty.
Yep.
Not everyone has the backhand to do it.
Correct.
Jack is interesting in that he has the backhand to do it. He rips the piss out of that middle court
Yep.
backhand and does it with conviction. But Jack's forehand wasn't always always tough enough to create that shot
Right.
for him.
Or
Not
big
to
enough.
mention big enough, right? Yeah, and
Right.
not to mention his
Yeah.
foot speed was he would get a little non-committal, if we will, stepping up to that ball. So
Right.
the fitness wasn't necessarily there, but fitness is there. Belief in the forehand is there, and so I've seen him do it repeatedly, and it's like, oh, he's got it, he's got it, and so that's why I was saying the matchup between Casper being able to get enough depth on that forehand to not let Jack step in because Jack takes that short backswing
Right.
and he plants that left leg and will just tee off on that
Yep.
backhand. But he can't do it if you're getting that back and that forehand lots of spin within like let's say 24, 18 inches of the baseline.
100%.
And you started to see Casper pick up the RPM, pick up the
Pick up the
depth,
RPMs
and not
and
let Jack step in.
I will add to it. I saw several points where he actually went wide first,
Right. Yeah.
if
Yeah.
and not deep first. So that stretched Jack. And then when he went back for the ball, then he went behind him deep. Not necessarily, and that while Jack's looking to kind of cover forehand, now he's got to take a really kind of a shovel backhand at the body. And now, unfortunately for him, Casper Ruud has the down the line rip or the back or the hook angle back. And I just say it was a tactical matchup. It was very surgical. I was happy to see Casper Ruud come through this match. Elated to see Jack Draper, who's going to have a lot more years at this at tennis now that he's proven himself to be a very sure-footed clay court player. And I really like the work he's putting in, Alvin. I got to tell
Yeah,
you, I mean,
man.
I look
Yeah.
at there's about 5 players that are really starting to surprise me right now. Jakob Mensing had another good tournament this tournament. Cerundolo had a great tournament this tournament. So many guys that I'm looking at, I'm like, man, you know what? These guys are starting to show some potential. Yao Fonseca lost a 6-6. A very very close match in the round of in the third round, starting to get some legs under him. I just like what I'm seeing. I'm really appreciating the level that I'm watching from these guys. And I got to be honest, it's while I'm looking at the lack of seeds, where did Zverev go? Of course, he lost to Cerundolo. Where did Fritz go?
Cerundolo owns him. I think he's
Well,
like 3 and
just
0 or
saying.
4 and 0 against Bear. Like he owns him.
Obviously, Novak lost, I think in the fourth round to Arnaldi. Demon R, lost in the quarters. I thought this could have been a good tournament for Alex. Medvedev lost in the quarters. Of course, he lost to Ruud. But I'm saying you're starting to look at some players that you're like, where were the top guys? Here in
Right.
this tournament. Number 1, number 3, number 4, number 6, number 9. All of them didn't equal their seeding. So just saying, It's now again, to your point, part of that's peak, part of that's the long
Well, it's
schedule.
also some of it's Madrid too. Like Madrid is not necessarily like an indicator for like Roland Garros success, right?
For
I
sure.
think just because of the altitude, it just it plays so much differently than all the other clay court events. So I'm willing to not think too much about it as far as like what does it mean for like as we approach Paris, but still
But
they all
still,
played in the same conditions, right? Yeah,
it's same.
yeah,
The balls on the same
it's
size,
still
Alvin,
exactly,
same
exactly. Yeah,
altitude.
yeah,
You know what I mean? Let's be honest. So I only said Alvin to say these are players that have not won much yet this year. Jack Draper did win in the Wells. You know what I mean? So I'm looking at that to say Jakovic did win. Miami. So you look at these players. I'm if I'm an Andre Rublev, I'm a Daniel Medvedev, if I'm a Taylor Fritz, if I'm a few others. Not mind you, semis of Miami's not a bad result for Taylor. I'm just looking at some point, I'm playing good enough, but am I playing good enough to really break out and have a nice match? Jack Draper comes in from this tournament saying, I got a shot. I got a shot at the French. I don't know if Taylor Fritz says the same thing to himself. I don't know if Andrew Rublev or Daniel Medvedev says, I'm playing well right now, going into the French. I'm
right.
good.
And I want to stop short of saying that I feel like Jack Draper has a chance at the French. I don't
Sure.
necessarily believe that. He doesn't. There are as well as he did this week. He's still his movement on clay is still a little suspect. Man. He doesn't really.
Has a long way to go for
Yeah,
a
yeah,
break.
but
Let's be honest. But
yeah,
but
but he
but
did finally a
enough
bit.
to believe that he belongs there, and
Right.
he won't just call it the goose egg. My point more, Alvin, is this: Alex grew up on the clay, right? Danielle is pretty good on the clay. These are players. Taylor Fritz isn't terrible. Demonar is a grinder and a counterpunisher by trade. I am saying the opposite, perhaps. I am worried about the guys that are typically well footed that did not get as far along in this tournament as I would have expected. Tommy Paul, right? I don't expect Ben Shelton to get to the finals of an ATP 1000 on clay, at least not right now. I expect him that on a hard court. So if he got bounced third round, I'd be like, ooh, weird. You know what I mean? But Demonar, I don't know. You know what I'm saying? So I just say that to say Tommy Paul got blasted. Wasn't it 1-1? I mean, or 2 and
Yeah,
2?
yeah,
I
yeah.
mean, I'm just saying. And bye, right? By Jack Draper. So I'm just looking at that to say you're talking about a guy who's not well footed, and yet he takes out a guy who was one of the quickest guys come out of the U.S. in a long time. And I'm like, you know, Tommy Paul moves great, not well, great. He's very sure-footed and plays well on the clay. That's what I'm getting at. And you're going out to not sure-footed. That's what I'm saying. It's not like he went out to a clay court grinder. He didn't go out to Carlos. You know what I mean?
That's right. Yeah,
Anyway,
yeah.
moving on.
Yeah, we'll move on. Let's take a little break. We'll come back and we'll start tackling the women's side, and we're gonna talk about Iga a little bit, and let's do that. Okay, and we're back. So, moving over to the women's side, I think the thing that we're both probably want to dig into, right? The Iga situation, right? We got some kind of problems, right? So right now, so Iga loses in the semifinals to Coco, right? And Coco has like oddly been beaten up on Iga lately. Like this is her third win in a row after being 0-11 against Iga, right? So yeah, but now she's got 3 wins in a row on the trot. So that is that I don't know. We'll talk about Coco a little bit later, but with Iga's all over the place right now, right? Takes a bagel set to Madison Keys before riding the ship and getting through that match. Um, Coco beats her 1-1. Like,
Blown away.
yeah, it was weird. You could kind of see, not only use the word weird, but you could see that both her confidence and her forehand were all over the place, right? She looks like a player who's searching for something. And
I would even say her serve, Alvin. Her serve looked like it was a pinata up there, man. Her second serve looked like it was all grunt, no bite. And Coco, hats off to Coco, first of all. But we'll talk about her in a second. It did not seem like Iga had a solution. And I don't necessarily, she didn't attack the returns like she's used to.
right,
She didn't. I didn't see her get into many backhand matchups, which she knows she preferred. Mind you, Coco's got a good backhand as well, but I did not see typical attack every ball down the middle, center shots, on the rise balls, take backhands off the court. I didn't see a ton of backhand angles. She did have her fair share of decent passes, but ironically, Alvin, she came in about 7, 8 times
She came in a
and
lot.
got passed like she was standing still.
She
And
came
so
in
I'm
looking
looking
like
at
she didn't
this
want to stay back.
right, and which is weird. And then
Very
she came
strange.
in and didn't volley well, and I'm like, it just didn't see. It seemed like she was looking for a way to beat a player who she's beaten before. She did not look number one esque. Is my issue. What do you think is is not just the problem, but what do you think was her mindset? Because to me, it looked like a player who's doubting themselves, who doesn't know how to win in matches like this when players are actually coming at her.
Right. I think that last part is the kicker, right? Like we'll even put the crown on Penko's head for showing the blueprint of like this is how you consistently beat Iga Swiatek. Right. And Penko does it by relentlessly attacking the second serve and then jumping on Iga before she jumps on you. And with
Which used to
Coco,
be Iga's trademark, by the way.
right. And Iga used to do it with the hat down, moving a million miles an hour, right? Like, yeah, just like having this air of like this super intense, more or less kid. But now it's like people believe that they can beat her. And it only takes like let me get a look at a few second serves.
Yep.
Let me weather whatever the storm is gonna be in the first, like when she comes out full of energy, I'll just fight through that and then I'm gonna start going after her, which is very interesting in that a lot of people talk about Coco's issues with the serve and the forehand, which are two things that you would use to go after someone, but yet Coco has been able to put it together this week in that technically her forehand doesn't look any different. She's hitting it with more intention, I believe, like her feet.
And more free.
Yeah, she just
She
like,
hit. If you look at Coco's two matches between Iga and Arena, it was two different players. Coco's forehand against Iga was like, watch this.
well, it's like Iga's ball like sits like it's weird. Like it's like the clay court in Madrid is like a slow hard court. It's like it's
Right.
just fast enough for you to have some rhythm, but it sits just enough for her to like hit that open stance that she wants to hit, like load that right leg
Yep.
and then just rip from the hips. Like Coco's not too good when she has to like step in and like really force the issue with it, but if she has time to hit the open stance and like use your pace, it's almost like Iga's ball sits right where she needs it to be.
And she tagged it cross. She tagged it
Oh my
line.
god.
She came in. Hey, Alvin had some good volleys. I mean, played well from the net. I was like, wow, Coco's
Yeah.
improved. And
And
now, and
Eagles
I will say
Eagles
this: Paula Badoza went to Coco's forehand.
Yeah, but she
Iga
didn't.
tried, and Iga got torched doing so. Which I'm left with two things out. Either Iga's ball sits up, to your point, so much that it's hittable, or Arena's ball is that much bigger than we all understand. I don't know which camp I'm on yet. I can't think that Arena's ball is 20 miles an hour faster. I could give you 10, maybe 8, which is significant, by the way, at that level. But I gotta think that Iga's ball is that much more user friendly, right? She's like an iPhone. It's hey, oh, all you gotta do is do this. And my point being, Coco recently has had issues with other players attacking her forehand. So how is it that she one-on-ones Iga on the clay, and Iga's pretty good on clay? How is it she one-on-ones Iga on the clay and goes through her with her forehand?
So okay, so I'm gonna get a little not. It's kind of technical, right? I think it's kind of technical. You look at Badosa, you look at Iga, you look at Arena, right? So Badosa doesn't hit the biggest ball in the world, right? And she was going to that forehand. This is Australian Open. We're probably referencing here, right?
Yep.
She's
Yep.
going to that forehand more so like try to make it. Just try to make it. I'm not gonna try to hurt you. I'm just gonna make you hit it a bunch of times. See, just it's going over there. deal with it, right? But that's a different proposition, especially since a lot of Coco's problems come from that extreme grip, right? You're talking about a ball that's not coming up very high, and now you're using like a damn near Western trying to get underneath it, right? It's a little bit of a different proposition.
Sure.
And I mentioned the grip part because Iga hits a heavy topspin ball, right? Now it's and Iga's not like, she ain't out here trying to draw errors. She's out here trying to go through you, but she's trying to go through you with a heavy topspin ball. That's actually the one that Coco's forehand is built to. It's actually
Well, with
she can handle that one. Yeah,
100%,
yeah.
100%,
Open up the stance, let that grip slide underneath, and throw it right. Throw
and
it down
throw
the
it.
line too. Like change directions. It's a
She hits so many good down the lines, which
so
is not
many.
easy for that grip and that stance. And that's my point. And Alvin went there constantly. I mean, she probably had 10 airs down the line,
It's
10
on the
winners down the
open.
line.
But they were all off the open stance though. I feel like there's
No
something
question.
about like getting on
But
the
Iga's
outside foot.
fast. And she went through her on the clay. I'm with you. But she found pace off of that ball, found a groove. I get your point about the groove and the way the ball sits up. I think that's well said. But we're talking about clay, one of the fastest girls on the tour, and she went through her with clean winners down the line. I'm just saying, Iga hugs the baseline like no other. It's not like she's gotten slower. I just wonder, has her ball gotten slower? And that's
Maybe.
my only issue. And I know the serve did. It looked like it. But to your point about maybe a little altitude, maybe a little clay, I don't know. But what I will say is it did not look like herself. I'm worried about her in some ways. I feel like she has, of all the players in the top five, she has been the one most missing in action from top form, probably since last year U.S. Open. And I feel like, who did she play, Alvin? What tournament was that she played Emma Navarro and she put the beat down on Navarro? Was that U.S. or was that
I think it was the
Australia?
U.S. I think it was the U.S. Open
U.S. last year,
last
right?
year.
Last
Yeah.
U.S. And I think Emma was trying to get games at the end. Wasn't that the tournament? Like it was 6-1, 5-1, and Emma was trying to salvage out a couple of
Yeah, I
flat
think
games
so. I have to
out
go
of it.
back and double check that, but I think so.
But my point being, this was U.S. Open last year. Alvin, this is just now May.
Well, I mean, if you look at it though, like last year Iga had a pretty good year, right? She like in this lead up between beginning of the year and now, right? She won Rome, she won Madrid, Indian Wells, Doha, right? She ripped off a bunch of 1000s and then won Roland Garros, right? She has not finaled a tournament since Roland Garros last year. That's wild. That's wild. She's usually winning somewhere between 5 and 7, 8 events a year up to this year, and now she has not made a final in 11 months.
Tough. That's tough.
So what are we taking from that?
I'll tell you what I'm taking from it. Blood in the water.
Yeah.
I told you in a few episodes back, Alvin, you don't want people saying you're playing well right now because that means it's okay to lose to you. Here's the opposite of that concept. She's not playing well right now. She's not feeling the ball well. Or here's the worst one. And this is a funny one. She's having some trouble on the forehand side. Or and here's its compatriot, she's beatable right now. And she's beatable right now basically is saying she don't believe she can win. Everybody knows how to beat her. And number 3, this is the best time to play Iga Swiatek. And that, to me, bodes horrible for a top player who's everybody's next big win. Because in this window right now, until she changes some things, she will continue to have more blood in the water.
And especially when the coming over to the European clay has always been known as her like safe space, right? Like forget what happens from Australia all the way through Miami. The party doesn't start until they hit the clay, right? That's when Iga's supposed to rack them up, come into Roland Garros, and she's the second coming of Rafa Nadal. Except for it's not happening, right? We stalled in Stuttgart. We stalled in where were we right before obviously Madrid. So like I think this is where it's like
She didn't play Charleston, did she?
No. She didn't play Charleston. She didn't play Charleston. So I think it's getting a little bit, now we see some pressure here. Like if she doesn't really crack it open in Rome, I don't know what Dunn looks like, but maybe Dunn is having a chance to become
looks
number
like
1 player
not
in the
making
world.
it to the second week. That's what Dunn looks like to me. I don't think she makes it past the second week. I think she barely makes it past Sunday, Monday of the second week. She'll get through the rank and file. I don't think she beats. I think there are too many good players that realize that she is beatable. And my problem with that is that opens up her side of the draw, and that opens up a wave of. There are too many good young players like the Alex Ayalas and others that are coming up that are saying, "Oh, please let me draw Iga Swiatek," and that's just not what you want players saying about you going into a major tournament like that. Um, and Alvin, I'm just telling you, when you people, she's beatable right now, and when they say that, it's not even it's not a threat. It's a fact, and that fact that you're beatable right now too. They do not have that fear
That's probably
factor.
worse.
That fear, thank you. That fear factor, Alvin, can get you a first set and let you get your legs under you and
Right.
kind of let the score kind of play to your favor. Hold serve, get a couple of breaks, just kind of win on momentum. That fear factor is no longer there for Iga. I mean, you got players that are playing her style against her better than she's doing it, and that's what I'm worried about with Iga. And now you heard it right here. Maybe a racket change, maybe something, but she needs to do something fairly soon if she wants to reclaim her footing and her dominance. And for a girl that works so hard and really tactically kind of develops the game that she does, for her not to have ways to hurt you on the clay and have other players who are realizing they can go through like Swiss cheese, that's a problem.
Well, also, we have to look at it kind of from a macro view. Like maybe take a step back a second here.
Sure.
We're comparing Iga to Iga, right? Iga was one in the world. She was a multiple Grand Slam champion, right? Like, is she looking like a player that has a chance to threaten to be number one in the world again? No. Is she looking like a player who's the odds-on favorite going into Roland Garros right now? I would say no, but she's losing to she got a Penko problem. Whatever, let's put that to the side. Coco Gauff's won a Grand Slam, right? Coco Gauff's the third or fourth best player in the world. Like,
Sure.
she's not she's no slouch either. So I think we're still seeing her lose to good players, but these were the same players that she was. Like I said, she was 11. I think she was 11-0 against Coco before Coco beat her late last year. So that's worrisome. Before we get at it,
Let me add one thing.
yeah,
I'll add
please
one
do.
thing if I can before we change gears. She's reminding me more of a Leighton Hewitt with a brief 2 to 3 year peak than she's reminding me of an Andre Agassi with a 10 to 12 year dominance of span. She's reminding me more of a player that had an upstart and a quick descent at number one, more than she's reminding me of a player who's about to beat the brakes off of another player for a length of time. And the
That's
reason why that,
normal. That's
yeah,
normal,
for the
especially on the
women's
women.
tour, it's more
Yeah,
than normal,
it's
right?
the
But
3 year peak.
she wasn't normal, Alvin. The norm for the women's tour was win one and be gone, win one and fade, right? We're talking about a young lady that won two or three within a year. How many does Iga have? Five?
One U.S. Open, four. It's either 3 or 4 Roland Garros. I don't know the
She
number
either
on the top
got
of my
four or
head.
five.
Yeah,
I
sort of
think
4 or 5.
I thought it was five, but I could be off. My point being, so we're not talking about a normal. We're talking about already better than most. Emma Raducanu has one, right? Madison Keys has one. It's normal for the top players to win one. Sloane Stevens has one. We're talking about for the greats, they have 5+. So I have to compare her to Iga among the greats, not Iga overachieving because she won two.
So let me clarify. What I'm saying is that it's a 3-year window of greatness, and I like to call it the 3-year peak. Like, once a player gets to their peak, specifically this happens on the women's side. It happens on both sides. You got to kind of take the truly greats, our big threes plus Serena and what
Think
out of
about
it.
it.
Yeah, but
Right.
you're gonna get to your peak, and then you're gonna be there for about kind of in that range, plus or minus 1 or 2 ranking spots
Yeah,
for
I'm with that.
max 3 years, because someone's coming,
I,
and then
I don't disagree.
I think what we're seeing here is like her. I think we're seeing the end of her window, her peak
That we
window,
agree with.
her peak window, right?
Yep.
And I think that's just kind of that is actually, I find that to be normal. That part is normal. It's any lots of players win one on the women's side. Lots of players win one.
Yeah.
Randoms win one, right?
Sure.
But being able to sustain something, I think that's the 3-year window I'm talking about. And she's coming up on this is probably like year 4 of that.
I was about
She
to
won her
say, so
first one. She
that window
won
might
the
be
weird one
closer.
she won the weird one in 2020, the one in fall, the Roland Garros that was in fall. So let's say like her first legit one was in 2021, 2022. Yeah, this, unless she's Serena, this should be it. Like this
Who
should
was the
be it.
lefty Alvin with the tattoos that won Wimby a year or two ago, maybe 2 years ago? Was it
Vondrousova.
Vondrousova? She's a classic example of a girl, like you said, has won one and bounced. Bencic, no, not Bencic. Who was it? The girl, Bianca Andreescu,
Jessica, yep.
won one. I get your point. I thought Iga was going to be that new Martina Hingis. It was going to put 5 to 8 of them away, just off of grit, tenacity, high percentage alone. And I get your point about the 3-year window. If that is the case, I am going to step out on a limb, Alvin, and tell you she has 3 tournaments left before the rest of the tour realizes that she is no longer one of the top 3. And within, in my opinion, I'm going to put on notice. Just so you put my main man on in July or whatever you said. I'm telling you that if she does not win one more between now and Australia, I think she will never win another one again. And that's just where I'm at. Her weapons are not there. Her core coverage will only get slower.
Right.
And the
Yeah.
other players' confidence will only continue to grow. And I think she has a chance to win the French. I really do. She's just that good of an athlete and that good of a player. But I don't think after that, I just don't think her chances are very good for grass or for hard court. Because of that reason, Australia possibly, because of the way the courts can play on the temperatures and she plays on the rise. But you heard it right here. She cannot Jasmine Paolini her way through the tour anymore. Jasmine's doing a better Iga than Iga is doing right now. And I say that to say she's got between now and next January to really re-sink her teeth back into the WTA. And
Yeah.
if she doesn't, in my opinion, she'll go the way of the dodo.
And she's so cerebral and so in her I'm just gonna say she's in her head so much that
Head.
if she doesn't win Roland Garros, I could see the wheels coming off. Like she might need a break.
Yeah.
So there's some. I mean, she had a coaching change. Like she's got Wim Fassett's on the bag, and he's been there since the beginning of since the end of last year when she came back from her suspension, and it's just like nothing's clicking, right? So, but now this is supposed to be her safe space. Like if she goes Roland Garros and doesn't win Roland Garros, or loses to someone that's not Arena Sabalenka, then I think we are, and then we're going into her worst surface, which is grass, and then like
and hard court, she's beatable by anybody.
Yeah.
If we can shift gears to Coco, tell me what you saw about Coco that you liked.
Well, okay, so I think that Coco, right? So she starts off the tournament, loses the first set to Yastremska 6-0, very first match, first set, catches a bagel, and then does not lose another set until playing Arena in the final, right? So I think she gets it. She did a really good job of finding what she needed to find. You know, beats Bencic, beats Andreeva, beats Iga.
Great matches, by the way.
Right, fantastic showing. And what I liked, and we can talk specifically about the forehand because that's the part that has been suspect of the last few months, maybe last 2 years, because she second serve she still didn't serve well, I would say, in that final. But her forehand, take the technique away from it, she's hitting it with intention. She's moving into the court when she has the opportunity, taking balls at the top of the bounce and hitting it like she does have a forehand. And I think that's like, there's lots of different ways to hit a forehand, and technique will save you when things get tight. But if you just believe,
but believe and feel are huge.
Just go hit the damn thing, right? And so she plays like she's got a big forehand. But the matchup with her and I'm more so interested in the matchup with her and Arena. It is like this beautiful chess match of like they're almost built for each other. Like Arena will just hammer, 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 hammer. But Coco's built to run all day, bring balls back, right? And just like
Get early,
you're gonna have, yeah, you're gonna have
redirect.
to hit through a paper bag to get rid of her. And it's like it it takes everything out of Arena to put Coco away. Like everything. And I think
Fraser Ali.
yes, and like today's match could have been exactly like the US Open final from 2 years ago. It's just that Arena didn't slip in the end of the second set.
She's in better shape and she's in a better space with
Yes.
momentum from the last few tournaments, right?
Right. Yeah.
So, and hats off to her and her crew. Um, I will say that Coco's best match to me was Iga. I think she played a Novak Dimitrov match for Miami against Iga, in my opinion. She peaked a bit early, and I say that from time to time, Alvin, just from the standpoint of she could not have hit her forehand any bigger against Iga. Ball, conditions, day, you called it. But she was tagging her forehand as big as I've ever seen her hit it. And I've seen her play in juniors. She hit it huge against Iga, who was not the easiest person to go through. And she was the attacker. Coco at her best as a counter punisher. She's a lot like Iga. And what I was so impressed with was she was attacking. And when a counter punisher becomes the attacker and is comfortable
Right.
doing it, I'm impressed because that's not their wheelhouse, right? She preferred to hit backhands, be on the run. Even when she beat Arena in the US Open years ago, she was doing it on the run, backhand passes, open stances, sliding, knee on the ground, you name it. She did not beat, she countered. And nothing
Yes.
wrong with that. She still won. The trophy's still in her name, and the name, as long as that, as far as I'm concerned, still says Corey Golf on the darn trophy. Here's my point. She attacked and went through Iga. I did not see any of that much in the match against Arena, and Arena almost lost
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
tactic, right? Went to Don Coco's backhand one time too many, and we're almost like, wait, what am I doing? Let me go back to the forehand. What am I thinking? This girl's backhand is better than mine. On the rise, her on the rise might be better than Arena's. Arena had this one, I think it was on her service point when she went to the backhand, she was serving in the near court, and Coco brought about 100-mile-an-hour return, and Arena ripped the backhand hard back up the line, which was very Coco-esque. And I remember watching that point saying, wow, when you start stealing your opponent's plays against you, against them, we got a nice little rivalry going on here, and I kind of like watching that. And so I think
Yeah.
that I think that that Arena is taking some cues out of Coco's book, and unfortunately, she kind of faded a little bit in that second set. But I was really excited to see that matchup. I was happy to see Coco back in a final. I was happy to see her hit her forehand. I was happy to see her kind of shake off whatever has been kind of ailing her. And it was good to see her really rip that forehand like she can. And unfortunately for Iga, she's unfortunately took a little bit of a step back this tournament. But remember how excited I was about Emma Raducanu from a few tournaments ago, where
Yeah.
I thought
Yeah.
she was actually playing. When you see a player really starting to feel the ball well, it bodes well for the tour. And I thought that was what happened here with Coco, and
I
good
mean,
for women's tennis.
it's almost the same with Casper. Like they're almost kind of the same boat,
100%.
right? Can do well
100%.
on
Nope.
clay.
Forehand can be iffy, but backhand, but they move well and
Yeah.
and they return well and
Comfortable on
buddy,
clay courts. Like
very
you
good
have
on
maybe a little
clay. You're right.
struggle
That's actually a very good
if you start to
good
the
comparison.
season. And yeah, I think they're both like, I think we feel better about the top end of tennis with both of them doing so well coming out of Madrid and moving into Rome. I don't have any wild predictions to make. I think I really maybe went a little too big on the Novak prediction. But I'm not gonna back down from it.
No doubt.
I'll
Can't
put it
back down.
I'll put it right here. If Novak wins Wimbledon, he's out. That's it. He's done. He's going out on top. Because
Wow.
he's not here for the tour grind. He's
He
done.
ain't here for the prize for the appearance money, is
No. Not one bit. Not one bit. Is there anyone that you're, as we're coming down towards you know, we're jockeying for pole position here as we're coming into, the last turn before Roland Garros. Rome starts, I think, on Wednesday, and it'll be another long one. Is there anyone that you have your eye on still who needs to have a Casper Ruud or a Coco Gauff type of
type of week and before we get going.
Arthur Feast needs to have a big week or two going into this next few on the men's side. I feel on the clay, Jakub Mensik needs to have another breakthrough week or two to really substantiate himself. And these are up and comers. I feel like the player that needs it the most right now, if he's going to stay relevant, is Daniil Medvedev. Tiafoe, much hate to say it, Tiafoe might be on the Swan Song tour. As much as I hate to say it, I think Tommy Paul needs to have a solid Rome to really put himself deep into in his own belief of the French. If I had to put one more player, Holger Rune, I thought is a player that needs to go a little deeper with some top players for him to be in that top 5 category that I think he deserves to be in, but unfortunately has not been there yet. On the women's side, I would love to see, I know Badosa's still a little dinged up. I would
Yeah.
love to see Raducanu, who was playing some great tennis not that long ago. You know I love my girl Jessica Pegula. Get back into some decent form, and I say decent form, they're playing well, but I would like to see them have a little better, some better, stuff in going into the French. I feel like the French is almost Arena's tournament to lose already. She's
Yeah.
she's
Yeah.
playing the best. She's beaten all comers. Her worst tournaments were finals, right? She's healthy. She's hitting the ball big. She's moving well. She's playing her game on the clay, Alvin. And that's typically a hardcore game. She's playing so clean and so free right now. She might just win all 4 this year if she continues the way she's playing. If she's at that level right now, she's just not vulnerable right now. Her mind is clear. She's got a good role. There's not
Yeah,
others attacking her or really coming close.
right. Like no one's playing. No one that can hurt her is playing well enough right now. Like it took Madison Keys like the tournament of her life,
Right.
and remember the match of her life to beat her in the final Australian Open.
And that's my issue is that I'm looking, and the people I mentioned, and Pinko's another one. Pinko, Ostapenko can do it. Andreeva can do it.
Rebecca,
Rebecca can do
but
it.
like,
Rebecca needs to Alvin.
but they got to get there. They have
I
to be
know
there.
you love Rebecca. You heard it right here. She has been a no-show, Alvin, for the majority of 2025. And I just got to say it.
No, I'm with you. But it's like, that's what I'm saying. Like, those who can aren't really in form right now.
That's my point. And so, therefore, for this tournament coming up, you only got 2 weeks left to really gain form. This is not a tournament where you can just, press a button and instant form and, flame on, human torch. You've got to have the reps, you got to have the feel, and the players in the locker room have to be able to say that about you. And right now, I don't know if anybody's saying that about Rebecca. So, and that's just what I'm saying. I think it's Arena's tournament to lose. I think the men's side is wide open. I look forward to you. Doesn't your boy come back next week, Center?
Center's coming.
Oh man, and I got to tell you, that's probably the biggest showdown coming up is him and Alcaraz for the French. Novak, like you said, by the time is undefeated. We're going to watch and see. I'm really hoping that Rome offers a great opportunity for 3 or 4 players. I mentioned Paul. I mentioned Berrettini has been playing, and Musetti had been playing. Musetti's playing great right now.
Playing great ball.
I mean, he's hitting very well. Sorrentino, dude, him and his brother had great tournaments this week. You heard it right here. I was very impressed with Sorrentino. I'm just hoping that guys like Taylor Fritz, guys like Tommy Paul, of course, Ben Shelton have a chance to really show some stuff. This could be Gail Monfils' last French, if you ask my honest opinion.
Probably.
And that's just on what it is. I think this is his last one because of what it means, and it's the French, and he's obviously of playing under the French flag. I would love to see him go out with a decent match. GMP
it'll be long.
GMP has not been heard of in 2025, in my opinion. Other players have also not been really heard from on the French side, who always Humbert has not been heard from. Who else is some decent French players that haven't really been
Well, let's not worry too much about it. I mean, we still got Rome to get through, and it's a
fair enough?
long one.
I'm just
Rome's
saying you always got to worry about the Frenchmen coming out in the French. Is what I'm saying.
Sure.
And so I wanted to kind of give a preview because that's always what I'm saying. We'll save that for later. But in my opinion, I'm really looking forward to what form Yannick Sinner comes back to, because he's been hitting balls.
Yeah. I think that's a good place to leave it, because the center of things is going to take up, I think, a lot of space in the next few weeks. I sure hope so. But with that, TH, that was a fun one. We'll come back with people.
The next one, Alvin. This was good.
We'll see you guys. We'll see you guys next week.
Yes, sir. And